Maurice King enters the common area of the pod. Inmate Tyler Grants, charged in King's death, sits at the table. King waits while Grants has a long talk with another inmate. After several minutes of waiting, King engages Grants in a conversation. King then appears to beckon to Grants, and the two proceed to King's cell. As they enter the cell, Grants closes the door behind them. Two other inmates follow. And as they enter, it appears they are attempting to contain someone. A fourth inmate on the pod floor watching the cell quickly walks up, briefly enters it, and reaches behind to close the door. Three inmates exit and stand outside the entrance to the cell, leaving King and Grants inside with the door closed. Six minutes after entering the cell, Grants leaves and walks to the cell on the same row. One of the other inmates closed the door to King's cell. A detention officer begins an inmate check on the pod 2 minutes later. He walks past the lower row of cells without looking into any of them, then proceeds up the stairs to the upper row, where one of the inmates who went into King's cell appears to direct him to another cell past King's. Roughly 90 minutes later, one of the detention officers begins to realize King isn't doing well. Eventually, the officer and two others carry King from his cell. One of the inmates involved earlier helps carry King down the stairs and place him in a wheelchair, where he was taken to a jail nurse. There, King struggled to remain conscious. The nurse called for an ambulance. By then, King, who was overweight and asthmatic, gasped for air and was sweating heavily. He told paramedics on the way to Duke Hospital he had been stomped and choked in the jail, a medical examiner later reported. King died in the emergency room. The autopsy report said his face was swollen from blows that helped trigger heart failure. He was 34, the father of 3 children ages 10, 13, and 15.